They called him a mountain man, but Elias Boone had never liked the sound of it. Made him seem half wild, half ignorant, like he slept in a cave and spoke only to bears. The truth was quieter, lonelier, and far more deliberate. Elias lived high above the valley town of Silver Creek, where the road gave up and the land decided who stayed. His cabin sat where pine trees thinned into rock and sky, where winter lingered longer than it should and summer arrived like a shy guest. He had built the place himself, every beam notched by his hands, every stone hauled from the creek below. Not because he enjoyed hardship, but because the mountain made sense. It did not gossip. It did not lie. It did not look at a man and decide what he was worth. People did that. At 37, Elias was broad-shouldered and weathered, his beard threaded with early gray, his hands permanently scarred and split from years of work. He spoke little when he went into town, which only encouraged folks to speak about him instead. They said he was too rough to marry, too strange, too old-fashioned. Some said he scared women. Others said he didn't want one. Both were wrong. Elias wanted a wife the way dry earth wants rain, not loudly, not desperately, but with a steady, aching patience. He wanted someone to share the silence with. Someone who understood that love didn't always announce itself in grand gestures. Sometimes it showed up as a second cup set by the fire, or a hand on your shoulder when the wind howled too hard at night. But Silver Creek was small. Every woman his age had either married young, moved away, or learned to look through him like he was part of the furniture. So when old man Carter at the Mercantile slid a folded newspaper across the counter one autumn afternoon and said, "Ever thought about one of these mail-order brides, Boone?" Elias almost laughed. Almost. The paper was creased and smudged, the ink faded. Inside was a small advertisement bordered by flowers, respectable women seeking marriage with hard-working men of good character. Letters exchanged. Arrangements discreet. Elias stared at it longer than he meant to. "City nonsense," he muttered. Carter shrugged. "City women don't mind mountains if they don't have to chop wood." That night, the idea refused to leave him alone. It followed him up the trail, into the cabin, sat across from him as he ate beans by lamplight. He imagined letters, words carefully chosen, the slow building of something honest before faces and judgments entered the picture. He told himself he was being foolish. 3 weeks later, he sent a letter anyway. The reply came 2 months after that, delivered by a writer who looked amused just handing it over. "Got yourself a bride comin', Boone?" the man asked, grinning. Elias ignored him and shut the door. The letter was brief, polite, written in a careful hand. An intermediary explained that a woman had been selected based on compatibility and availability. Travel arrangements were already in motion. She would arrive by stagecoach on the first Friday of November. No name, no description. That should have worried him. Instead, Elias felt something like calm settle into his bones. Whatever came, he would meet it straight on. The mountain had taught him that much. Silver Creek buzzed like a kicked anthill the week the news got out. "Did you hear who they're sending him? Poor girl, whoever she is." No, you haven't heard. It's a joke. From back east." Elias heard none of it directly. People rarely spoke to him that way. But looks lingered longer than usual. Smiles twisted. Laughter cut off when he entered a room. On Thursday night, as the first snow dusted the peaks, Elias sat sharpening his knife by the fire when a knock came at the door. It was Martha Bell, the schoolteacher. She stood stiffly, her mouth pinched with something like pity. "I thought you should know," she said without preamble. "Know what?" She hesitated. "They're saying the woman coming tomorrow. She was sent as a sort of," Martha swallowed. "A joke. Her family didn't want to deal with her. They called her ugly." The word fell between them like a dropped plate. Elias felt his jaw tighten, but his voice stayed level. "Who's they?" Martha looked away. "People." He nodded once. "People talk. They say she's plain, awkward, too old, that no man wanted her, so they sent her to a man who wouldn't know better." Silence stretched. Finally, Elias said, "Thank you for telling me." Martha studied him, searching for anger, humiliation, something. When she found none, only a tired steadiness, her eyes softened. "You don't have to go through with it," she said gently. "You could send her back." Elias stood and opened the door for her. "I won't." Friday dawned iron cold and clear. Elias rode down to town early, hitching his horse near the stage stop. A small crowd had gathered, pretending to browse, pretending not to wait. He ignored them all, leaning against the post, eyes fixed on the road. When the stagecoach finally appeared, its wheels groaning, conversation hushed. It rolled to a stop, dust and frost swirling. The driver climbed down. Passenger for Boone. A woman stepped out. She was not what the town expected. She was taller than average, her posture stiff like she wasn't used to being looked at. Her coat was worn but mended carefully. A plain brown hat shaded a face that was not ugly. Not beautiful either, by the narrow standards people clung to. Her features were strong, her nose a little crooked, her mouth serious. But her eyes, gray and steady, took everything in without flinching. She held herself like someone braced for impact. Whispers rippled through the crowd. That's her. They sent that. Elias didn't move at first. He just watched her. Watched the way her fingers tightened around her bag. The way her shoulders squared when laughter snuck through the air. Then he stepped forward. I'm Elias Boone, he said simply. She looked at him. Really looked. Her gaze flicked to his beard, his height, the scars on his hands. Something unreadable passed through her expression. Then she nodded. Matilda Hart, she replied. Her voice was low, controlled. I believe I'm what you ordered. A snort came from somewhere behind them. Elias turned slowly, his eyes cold enough to freeze sound. The laughter died. He faced her again. You're welcome here, he said. If you choose to be. That made her blink. I was told you needed a wife, she said carefully. I need a partner, he corrected. The rest we can decide. For the first time since stepping off the coach, Matilda's grip loosened on her bag. All right, she said. Then let's decide. Elias offered his arm. Not possessive, not hurried. Just an option. After a moment, she took it. And as they rode up toward the mountain, leaving Silver Creek's whispers behind, neither of them noticed the way the wind softened, or how the trail seemed less steep than it had the day before. They only knew this. Whatever joke the world thought it had played, the mountain had received something real. The climb back to the mountain took longer than Matilda expected. Not because the trail was especially treacherous, though it was narrow and edged with rock, but because Elias never rushed the horse. He rode with the calm patience of someone who had learned that forcing nature only earned you bruises. The rhythm was steady, predictable, almost soothing. Matilda sat straight-backed in the saddle behind him, her gloved hands resting lightly against his coat. She had been prepared for discomfort, for cold, for the unspoken awkwardness of riding into the unknown with a man she'd never met. What she hadn't prepared for was how safe she felt. That realization unsettled her more than fear ever could. They rode mostly in silence. Elias spoke only when necessary, warning her of a low branch, a sharp turn, a patch of loose stone. His voice was deep but restrained, as if he weighed each word before letting it go. Matilda appreciated that. Words had been used against her all her life. As the town fell away behind them, she felt something loosen inside her chest. Silver Creek had watched her with the same eyes she'd known since girlhood, measuring, judging, already deciding what she was worth. Up here, there were only trees, rock, and wind. The cabin came into view just as dusk began to soften the sky. It stood solid against the slope, smoke curling gently from the chimney. Built into the land rather than imposed upon it. There was nothing fancy about it, no lace curtains or painted trim, but it was well cared for. Sturdy, honest. Elias dismounted first, tying the horse before turning to help her down. His hands were warm through her gloves. Calloused, careful, watch your footing, he said. I've got it, she replied, though she didn't pull away. Inside, the cabin smelled of pine, smoke, and something savory still lingering from a recent meal. The fire crackled low in the hearth. 2 chairs sat near it, not one. 2 plates rested on the rough-hewn table, clean and waiting. Matilda noticed everything. You expected me, she said quietly. Elias set her bag down near the wall. I hoped. That word, hoped, caught her off guard. He shrugged out of his coat and hung it on a peg. You'll want to warm up. There's stew left, if you're hungry. She hesitated. Hunger had been a luxury during her journey, sometimes an afterthought, sometimes an ache she ignored. But now that the scent reached her properly, her stomach betrayed her. Yes, she admitted. Thank you. They ate in near silence, seated across from each other. Not awkward silence, observant silence. Matilda ate carefully, mindful of manners drilled into her since childhood, though no one had ever praised her for them. Elias noticed her restraint. You don't need to be polite here, he said. If you're hungry, eat. Her spoon paused. Old habits. He nodded. They die hard. The fire popped, sending sparks up the chimney. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the shutters. After a moment, Matilda spoke again. You don't seem disappointed. Elias looked up. About me. There it was. The word left unsaid but heavy. He studied her face. Not appraising, not weighing, but listening. I didn't ask for a picture, he said finally. I asked for a person. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. They told me you might send me back, she said. If I wasn't satisfactory. They told you wrong. That simple certainty cracked something open. After supper, Elias showed her the cabin, small but thoughtfully arranged. A workbench by the window. Shelves lined with jars of preserved food. A stack of neatly folded blankets. Then he stopped, just before the back room. This is yours, he said, opening the door. The room held a narrow bed, a washstand, and a small window overlooking the trees. A quilt lay folded at the foot of the bed, clearly handmade, the stitching uneven but careful. You didn't have to, Matilda began. I wanted to, he replied. I won't pretend we know each other yet. You deserve your own space. Her throat tightened. Privacy was something she'd rarely been afforded. Thank you, she said softly. Elias hesitated at the doorway. I'll sleep out here. If you need anything, just say so. She watched him leave, then sat on the bed, hands trembling slightly as the quiet settled around her. For the first time in years, no one was watching. That night, sleep came in fragments. The wind howled, the cabin creaked, and unfamiliar sounds stirred her awake more than once. Each time, she expected dread to follow. It didn't. Instead, she heard Elias moving quietly in the main room, adding wood to the fire, checking the door, pacing once when the storm intensified. A guardian's restlessness, not a predator's. Eventually, exhaustion won. Morning arrived pale and cold. Matilda woke to the sound of chopping wood. She dressed quickly, smoothing her hair, steadying herself before stepping outside. Frost coated the ground, the mountains glowing pink under the rising sun. Elias stood near the woodpile, axe swinging with measured force. He paused when he noticed her. Morning, he said. Good morning. He set the axe aside. I was going to fetch water. You're welcome to come, if you like. I would, she replied, surprising herself. They walked together to the creek, breath fogging the air. The water ran clear and fast, cold enough to bite. Matilda knelt, filling the bucket. I've never lived anywhere like this. It's not for everyone, Elias said. The winters are long. The work doesn't stop. She straightened. I'm not afraid of work. I didn't think you were. They carried the bucket back in silence, but it felt different now, less guarded. Inside, Matilda insisted on helping prepare breakfast. Elias watched her hands move with practiced efficiency. You're used to cooking, he observed. I raised 3 younger siblings, she said. Then, after a beat, until I was told I'd become a burden. He stopped moving. You're not one here, he said quietly. She looked up, startled by the firmness in his voice. Matilda, he continued, choosing his words carefully, I won't pretend I know what they put you through. But whatever names they gave you, whatever jokes they made, that stays off this mountain. Something in her eyes shimmered dangerously close to tears. She turned back to the pan before they could fall. Thank you, she whispered. As they ate, a plan began to form, not spoken aloud, but felt. Work to be done, seasons to face, trust to build slowly, brick by brick. This wasn't a fairy tale. There would be misunderstandings, hard days, storms that tested patience and resolve. But as Elias watched Matilda sip her coffee by the fire, her shoulders finally relaxed, he felt something settle deep in his chest. Not triumph, not possession, recognition. The world had called her ugly. The world had called him unfit. Up here, neither mattered. The mountain had room for truth. And for the first time in a long while, so did he.